Hello, today is the 22nd of June, 2024. As always, we'll begin with our disclaimer, go over our calls, and then make some predictions. This is my trading plan for Monday, which is June 24th, 2024. Please remember, my calls can be wrong. Any trade you make should be made at your own risk. We had a few calls. We said that the commonest thing, here's what we said. Said the commonest thing was a gap and a prompt move outside the day's range. Here's the gap, here's the prompt move outside the day's range. So we got that. We looked for the pattern with the early low, that's this. Monday should have the early high. We already got what we said, but the next commonest thing is to close a little change and have a big move the next day. Well, we closed down 8.5 points. That's well under 0.25%, so that's the next most common thing too. And if that plays out, doesn't have to because we already had the prediction satisfied, but it usually will. And if that plays out, Monday should have a big move. And these are the daily patterns we're looking for next week. During the day, MEJT gave a sell signal. We printed the minimum target immediately, so that's been satisfied. Friday's pattern is usually a rally day with a early low and a high in the final hour, midday drop. Well, we got a high in the final hour, but it was under this midday high, and if that's maintained at Monday's open, that's a negative pattern. Now, it doesn't have to be maintained. Looking for a big move, and Monday's open can substitute for Friday's close. So if we gap and promptly take out this high, we have the normal pattern, and actually that would be pretty good because after we hit the all-time high, we've been dropping for almost 2 days and just can't close. This is a close. Can't close under any of these lows, so the move down isn't getting any steam. So if we do gap up, that completes the normal pattern. But if we don't, we should have a pretty big move to the downside. So let's look at some other things. Well, here's the DeMark's rules. We've had bar 13 printing early. If we drop in a hurry, we can explain it, and we don't have to go higher. But because it's early, we can go higher by a bar and not change anything. It doesn't mean the system, doesn't mean that his count failed. It just meant that it didn't finish early, and it doesn't have to finish early. And there are a few things I look for when this thing tops out. If this is the high, and if you're going to collapse, the rule from his book, maybe it was after his book, said you really should undercut the TDST line within 3 bars. Well, that's way down here at 50.64. That's not going to happen. So we're not going to have a collapse. And that's all it says in his work. But there are some other things I look for. One is bar 8 of countdown, and one's bar 13 of countdown. If we're going to have a drop of any size, there's no time limit in his work, but usually you're going to take out bar 8 pretty soon. That's over 100 handles higher. And I really get suspicious if this is going to work if we can't close under bar 13, and we didn't. So time hasn't run out yet. If you drop here, it's still within 3 days, but this isn't getting off to a kind of start I normally see if this pattern is going to correct in terms of price. Now, as I've said, it can also correct in terms of time. You can also get more extended, and you can print 1 bar higher without saying that the count isn't going to work. But if we were going to drop from here, usually you're going to see more impressive action on the downside by this time. Let's try to count this from the high. You can count this as an A, and this is a B. And if that's A and that's B, you've got your C right here. And if you look at wave C, this is the price low of wave C. It's the wave low. Here's the wave low. You get your A and your B, and then you have an ending diagonal triangle. And the fibs are all quite good. And if that's the end of red C, and if that's an ending diagonal triangle, it should rally. And the minimum target is to overcome the origin, which is at, what is that? Oh, just under 54.86. So if that's what the right count is, we could rally from here. Now it doesn't have to be the right count. You can count this as ABC for A. You can count this as a triangle and B for B, and C could be down. But for right now, this count says you can't rule out railing. You can't rule out railing one more time to finish DeMark's bar 13 without it finishing early. Now again, we're looking for a big movement. If we start down, we're not going to wait around for that. But if we start up, that's quite a bit higher over this high, and it's a valid way to count this. So we'll have to see where we open on Monday. Well, Monday's pattern has the early high regardless of where we open. Friday's normally bullish pattern failed to close near its high, and if that's maintained in Monday's open, it should lead to lower prices printing regardless of how we close. But if we gap up smartly and overtake Friday's high, that kills the pattern. I think that's entirely possible. There's a wave count compatible with an ABC down being completed and an ending diagonal triangle in place. There's a good chance we see a big move Monday because Friday closed a little change. Then if we do, there's resistance at the moves higher. There's resistance at the ES, not cash, ES 55.88 level we saw in futures. And that would also be DeMark's bar 13 of a combo and sequential sell signal. So we're looking for the pattern with the early high. We're looking for a large move. And even though there are a number of signs at the top here, you can't rule out one higher high with with Monday's move being up. Now, if it starts way down here, we're just going to forget that. But if it starts up here, there's a significantly higher target, and the new all-time high can't be ruled out. So we'll have to see where we open to give us a clue, and that's today's call.